In the southern United States during the early 19th century, Black enslaved women faced the relentless daily grind of plantation life from 1820 onward, a period marked by the expansion of cotton production. Welcome to The Glorious Historian, where the silenced voices of enslaved Africans resound through time. From brutal chains to unbroken spirits, we unveil their struggles, resilience, and legacy. Subscribe now, share your thoughts below, and journey deeper into their truth. Let their voices guide your heart. Listen on. The year 1820 ushered in a new era of intensified labor as the demand for cotton soared across the Atlantic. They rose before the first light pierced the horizon, the air heavy with the damp scent of dew-soaked earth and the faint sweetness of cotton blossoms. Their bodies ached from the previous day's toil, every muscle protesting as they forced themselves to move, yet rest remained a distant, unattainable dream. Dressed in tattered gray cotton dresses, patched together from worn scraps salvaged from the plantation, they stepped barefoot onto the cold, uneven dirt floors of their cramped cabins. The overseer's horn blared through the stillness, a harsh, insistent summons that brooked no delay or excuse. They gathered their rudimentary tools, sickles dulled by constant use and baskets frayed at the edges, and trudged in silence to the sprawling cotton fields that dominated the landscape. The fields stretched endlessly before them, white bowls glinting under the rising sun, a deceptive beauty that masked the suffering endured within their rows. The heat intensified by mid-morning, beating down on their unprotected heads with a ferocity that left their skin parched and stinging. They bent low to the ground, their hands moving with practiced swiftness to pluck the cotton, the sharp thorns piercing their fingers, drawing blood that mingled with the sweat pouring down their faces. The white overseer, mounted on a sturdy horse and clad in a fine gray wool coat, watched with a cold, unyielding gaze, his coiled whip a constant threat, ready to strike at any sign of slowness or hesitation. Their backs burned from the endless stooping, muscles screaming for relief that never came, the strain etched into their postures. They hummed softly, spirituals rising and echoing through the rows, a quiet defiance born of generations of resilience, their voices carrying tales of a promised land that fueled their endurance. By noon, the sun scorched relentlessly, the humidity thickening the air until breathing became a labored effort, their chests heaving with each breath. They received a brief, inadequate break, a crust of stale cornbread and a sip of tepid, brackish water. But it was woefully insufficient to restore their strength. Hunger gnawed at their insides, a persistent companion to their exhaustion, a dull ache that grew with each passing hour. They returned to the fields, the afternoon dragging on with agonizing slowness, each hour a test of their waning physical and mental fortitude. The overseer's shadow loomed larger as the day wore on, his presence a constant, oppressive threat that kept them moving. Yet they persisted, their resilience a silent rebellion against the crushing weight of their bondage, a strength drawn from the depths of their collective spirit. Black enslaved women bore a dual burden of field and household labor from 1820 to 1840, their responsibilities extending far beyond the cotton rows into the very heart of the plantation's domestic sphere. They toiled in the fields alongside black men, their hands bleeding from the relentless assault of cotton thorns, their bodies strained by the unyielding pace demanded by the white overseers. Many worked while pregnant, their swollen bellies a testament to their endurance, supported only by makeshift cloths tied around their waists to ease the strain. Yet the labor continued unabated. The white overseer showed no mercy, his whip falling with equal force on those who slowed, leaving scars that crisscrossed their backs and marked their skin as a map of their suffering. Others were assigned to the plantation house, where their duties multiplied exponentially, a shift that brought new challenges. They scrubbed wooden floors until their knees bled, the harsh lye soap burning their raw, chapped hands. The sting a constant reminder of their servitude. They cooked elaborate meals they could never taste, the rich aroma of fresh bread and roasted meat. A cruel taunt to their empty, rumbling stomachs. Their own hunger a silent protest against the feast they prepared. They tended to the white enslavers' children, nursing them with milk that should have nourished their own black infants, their arms aching from cradling foreign babies while their own cried from neglect. Their own black children often went hungry, left in the care of elderly women too frail for field work. Their small voices a faint echo in the background of their mother's labor. At night, they returned to their cabins, their bodies utterly exhausted, to tend to their own families with what little energy remained. They mended clothes by the dim flicker of candlelight, their fingers trembling from fatigue, using thread scavenged from discarded scraps or unraveled fabric. They prepared meager meals, thin cornmeal mush or stolen vegetables dug from the edges of the fields, stretching every bite to feed their hungry children, their ingenuity a lifeline in the face of scarcity. Sleep eluded them, their rest interrupted by the cries of infants or the dread of the white overseer's midnight visits, his footsteps a harbinger of further demands. Their days formed an unbroken cycle of labor, their strength the only barrier between survival and collapse, a quiet act of defiance woven into every task they performed. Violence shadowed the lives of black enslaved women from 1820 to 1840, a pervasive threat that permeated every moment of their existence on the southern plantations. The white overseer's whip was a daily reality, its sharp sting a punishment meted out for the slightest infraction. A dropped cotton basket, a moment's pause, or a glance deemed insolent. They labored under his watchful, unyielding eye, his fine gray wool coat a symbol of his authority, his readiness to strike a constant fear that coiled in their chests. The white enslavers themselves visited the fields with regularity, their presence reinforcing their absolute power over the enslaved. Their fine wool suits a stark contrast to the tattered cotton dresses of the women they controlled. These women faced abuses that scarred more than their bodies, their dignity assaulted in the darkness of their cabins, where the white enslaver's shadow fell with impunity. They endured physical assaults with no recourse, their cries swallowed by the night, their suffering hidden from the world beyond the plantation's boundaries, a silent agony shared only among themselves. The threat of punishment loomed large over every action, a dropped basket earning 10 lashes delivered with mechanical precision. The overseer's rage swift and merciless, his voice a growl of dominance. They learned to mask their pain, keeping their heads bowed and their expressions neutral to avoid drawing attention, a survival tactic honed through years of terror. Silence offered no guarantee of safety. Some were targeted for their beauty, a curse in this cruel system, their features drawing the unwanted gaze of the white overseer or enslaver. Others resisted, their defiance met with brutal force, leaving whip scars, broken bones, and a resolve that refused to break despite the violence. They bore these marks with a stoic resilience, their spirits unbowed even as their bodies bore the evidence of their torment. The overseer's patrols intensified after dusk, his whip a tool to maintain control, his lantern casting long shadows that deepened their fear. Yet they found strength in their shared suffering, their endurance a testament to an unbreakable will that persisted against the relentless tide of violence. Family separation tore at the hearts of Black enslaved women from 1820 to 1840. A pain deeper than physical wounds, a wound that festered in their souls. The auction block stood as a grim specter on the plantation horizon, where Black mothers were ripped from their children without warning or mercy, their lives upended in a moment. They stood with bound wrists, their tattered gray cotton dresses hanging loosely on their emaciated frames, as white traders in fine wool suits inspected them like livestock, their hands prodding and their eyes calculating. Their Black children clung desperately to their skirts, their small hands gripping the fabric, their cries piercing the air as they were torn away, their voices fading into the distance as they were led to unknown fates. These women watched helplessly, their babies sold to distant plantations hundreds of miles away, their fates shrouded in uncertainty, a separation that left an indelible mark on their hearts. Some never saw their children again, the memory of their faces haunting their dreams, a ghostly presence that lingered through sleepless nights. Others lost Black husbands, their unrecognized marriages dissolved by a white enslaver's whim, their partners sold or traded without a second thought. They whispered tearful goodbyes in the shadows of the cabins, knowing that reunion might only occur in the afterlife, a hope they clung to with fragile faith. The ache of these separations lingered, a wound that never healed, a constant burden on their souls that weighed heavily with each passing day. They clung to hope, sharing stories of lost loved ones around the firelight to keep their memories alive, a ritual that offered solace. They sang songs of sorrow, their voices a lament for families broken apart, a subtle rebellion against the fate imposed upon them. The melodies rising like a prayer, their love for one another sustained them, their resilience a quiet strength that shone through the darkness of their loss, a bond that no auction block could sever. Starvation was a relentless foe for Black enslaved women from 1820 to 1840, a struggle that tested their survival instincts to the breaking point on the southern plantations. The white enslavers provided meager rations, stale, often moldy cornmeal, a sliver of rancid salt pork, and occasional wilted greens, quantities never sufficient to sustain the grueling labor demanded of them day after day. Hunger gnawed persistently at their stomachs, weakening their bodies with each passing day, their energy sapped by the constant deprivation that left them trembling. They stole fleeting moments to forage in the surrounding woods, gathering wild berries or fibrous roots at great personal risk. The white overseer's lash a constant threat that hung over their every move. These small acts of survival required immense courage, their hands trembling as they hid their findings beneath their tattered cotton dresses. the fear of discovery, a heavy burden. They shared what little they managed to gather with their black children, often going without food themselves to ensure their babies had a chance to eat, a sacrifice born of maternal love. They boiled cornmeal into thin, watery mush, stretching it with water scavenged from the creek to feed their families, their ingenuity a lifeline in the face of relentless scarcity. They hid scraps in the crevices of their cabins, risking severe punishment to save a morsel for the next day. The act a desperate defiance against their hunger. Some dared to steal from the plantation kitchen, pilfering a potato or a crust of bread. A desperate act born of necessity that carried the penalty of lashes if caught. The threat of starvation loomed large, their bodies growing thin and frail, their strength fading as their ribs became visible beneath their skin. Yet, they persevered with unwavering determination, their will to survive a quiet resistance against the odds stacked against them. They traded secrets of edible plants among themselves, building a network of support that offered a glimmer of hope. Their fight against hunger was a daily battle, their resilience a beacon of hope that shone through the darkest times, a testament to their unyielding spirit. Motherhood was an ordeal for black enslaved women from 1820 to 1840, a source of joy overshadowed by the cruelty of their circumstances on the plantations. They labored in the cotton fields while pregnant, their bodies strained by the added weight of their unborn children, working through the early contractions under the blistering sun with no respite. They gave birth in the confines of their cramped cabins with no medical care to ease their suffering, aided only by other black women who shared their plight. Their hands gentle but inexperienced, these black newborns brought a fleeting glimmer of hope, a reminder of life amidst the pervasive suffering, their tiny cries a brief respite from the silence of despair. But this joy was tempered by a deep, abiding fear, the knowledge that their children were born into the same bondage that defined their own lives, a legacy they could not escape. They nursed their babies in stolen moments, their milk often taken first to nourish the white enslavers' children, leaving their own black infants hungry and weak. Their own black children grew up in a state of chronic hunger, forced into labor as soon as they could walk, their small frames bent under tasks meant for adults. They taught their children the skills of survival, how to hide food, how to endure pain, whispering lessons of resilience in the quiet of the night, their voices soft to avoid detection. The constant threat of separation haunted them, their babies at risk of being sold at any moment, a fear that kept them awake with every creak of the cabin door. They held their infants close, their arms a fragile shield against the harshness of the world, their embrace a sanctuary in a life of turmoil. They sang lullabies, their voices trembling with a mix of love and fear, a quiet act of defiance that carried their hopes into the darkness. Their motherhood was a battle fought on multiple fronts, their love a powerful weapon against the oppression, their resilience a legacy passed down to their children through every tender touch. Community bonds provided a vital strength for black enslaved women from 1820 to 1840, a lifeline that sustained them through the trials of plantation life. They gathered in secret after the sun had set, their voices kept soft and low to evade the detection of the white enslavers who patrolled the night with vigilant eyes. Black enslaved women often took the lead in these clandestine meetings, their wisdom and experience guiding the group through the darkness, their presence a source of stability. They shared whatever food they could spare, a handful of wild berries or a stolen yam passed from hand to hand with careful reverence, a gesture of solidarity that bound them together. Black enslaved men contributed their skills, repairing broken tools with deft hands despite the exhaustion that weighed on them. Their craftsmanship, a gift to the community. They cared for each other's black children, ensuring that no one was left alone to face the harsh realities of their bondage, their collective care, a shield against despair. The white enslavers strictly forbade these gatherings, viewing them as threats to their control, but the enslaved persisted, finding hidden spots amidst the trees or behind the barns to convene. They built strong ties through their shared labor during the day, their teamwork a quiet defiance against the isolation imposed upon them by their captors. They taught each other essential survival skills, how to forage for edible plants, how to mend torn clothing with whatever thread they could find, passing this knowledge quietly from one to another. The community offered much-needed emotional support, their rare laughter a precious sound that echoed softly in the night, a brief escape from their suffering. They mourned their losses together, their tears a shared grief that deepened their bonds, their sorrow a communal burden. The white overseers' patrols, with their flickering lanterns casting long shadows, threatened to disrupt these meetings, but their unity held firm against the pressure. They preserved oral histories, keeping their African roots alive through stories of distant lands and heroic ancestors, a cultural thread that connected them to their past. These meetings carried the risk of severe punishment, lashes, confinement, or worse. Yet they continued undeterred, their community a fortress of hope that stood resilient. They sang spirituals, their melodies rising like prayers for freedom, a sound that carried their dreams into the night and strengthened their resolve. Cultural resistance defined the lives of Black enslaved women from 1820 to 1840, a powerful means to reclaim their identity amidst the dehumanization of slavery and the Southern plantations. They sang spirituals in the cotton fields, their voices blending in harmonious waves that rose above the rustle of leaves, a sound that carried both sorrow and a coded promise of escape that the white enslavers failed to understand. Black enslaved women danced in secret gatherings held under the cover of night, their movements a celebration of life and a defiant rejection of the bondage that sought to erase their spirit. Their steps a silent rebellion. They wove baskets from the scant materials available, reeds gathered along the riverbanks, or straw pilfered from the barns, their hands creating beauty from the despair that surrounded them, each stitch a testament to their ingenuity. The white enslavers dismissed these acts as trivial, unaware of the deeper significance they held as acts of resistance and a preservation of their cultural identity. They told tales of their African past, recounting stories of warriors, spirits, and kings, keeping their heritage alive in the hearts of their Black children who listened with wide-eyed wonder. They used herbs gathered from the wild for healing, a quiet rebellion against the neglect of their white owners, treating wounds and fevers with care, passed down through generations. The white overseers' oversight allowed these traditions to flourish, his focus fixed on labor quotas rather than the cultural life budding in the shadows of the plantation. They named their children with deep meaning, choosing names that honored their heritage and carried stories of their lost homeland, a subtle act of defiance against the erasure of their past. These cultural practices were fraught with risk, the threat of punishment ever present, with discovery often leading to severe repercussions such as lashings or separation. Yet they persisted with unwavering resolve, their culture serving as a shield against the despair that threatened to engulf them, a bulwark of identity in a world determined to strip it away. They carved small wooden symbols from scraps, intricate designs that represented their resilience, each figure a silent prayer. The songs and dances grew bolder over time, a subtle challenge to the bondage that defined their lives, their cultural expressions a legacy that would endure. The physical scars of labor marked the bodies of Black enslaved women from 1820 to 1840, a visible map of their suffering etched into their flesh on the southern plantations. They worked from the first light of dawn until the last rays of sunset faded, their hands blistered and raw from the constant picking of cotton, fingers bleeding from the thorns that pierced their skin with every movement, their backs bent permanently from the endless stooping required to harvest the crops, the pain a constant companion that throbbed with each breath, their postures a testament to years of strain. Malnutrition weakened them, their bodies growing frail from the meager rations of stale cornmeal and rancid pork, their frames shrinking as their ribs became prominent beneath their tattered cotton dresses. The summer heat burned their exposed skin, dehydration a daily threat as they toiled without sufficient water, their lips cracking and their throats parched under the relentless sun. The winter cold numbed their bare feet, the tattered dresses offering no warmth against the biting frost, their limbs shivering as they worked through the chill. They bore whip scars across their backs and shoulders, broken bones from falls or beatings, and untreated infections that festered in the humid air, their bodies a canvas of endurance. They gave birth under the strain of labor, their recovery rushed by the demands of the fields, their bodies pushed beyond natural limits. They aged prematurely, their faces lined with deep wrinkles, their hair graying from the stress and malnutrition that aged them far beyond their years. Diseases like malaria and dysentery ravaged their weakened forms, their resistance low due to the lack of proper care, each illness a battle fought with little hope. Their Black children suffered similarly, their small bodies frail from hunger and overwork, their growth stunted by the harsh conditions they inherited. Yet they labored on with unyielding determination, their endurance a quiet defiance against the physical torment inflicted upon them. They adapted to the chronic pain, their bodies becoming resilient in ways that surprised even themselves, a testament to their unyielding spirit that refused to be broken by the scars they carried. The emotional toll of enslavement weighed heavily on Black enslaved women from 1820 to 1840, a burden that permeated every aspect of their lives on the southern plantations, a silent agony that shaped their inner world. They lived in a state of constant gnawing fear, the white overseer's whip a looming threat that hung over their every action, his presence a shadow that darkened their days. The loss of their freedom haunted their dreams, a deep, aching pain they could neither escape nor fully express, a longing that lingered in the recesses of their minds. They grieved the separation from their families, their hearts heavy with a loss that knew no end, the memory of children and husbands sold away, a constant companion in their solitude. The white enslavers' cruelty denied their humanity, leaving deep scars on their souls through acts of violence and degradation, their worth reduced to the labor they could perform. They suppressed their anger, knowing that any overt rebellion could mean death, their rage simmering beneath a carefully maintained facade of submission, a fire banked but never extinguished. They hid their tears, aware that showing weakness could be exploited by those who held power over them, their sorrow a private grief kept locked within their hearts. Black children grew up in a world of terror, their innocence stolen by the harsh realities they faced from a tender age, their small faces etched with fear. They held to a fragile thread of hope, a belief in a better future that sustained them through the darkest moments of despair, a light they nurtured in their minds. The white overseer's taunts cut deeper than his whip, his words designed to break their spirits as much as the lash broke their flesh. A psychological torment added to their physical pain. They found solace in the embrace of their community, the shared pain forging a bond that offered mutual support, a refuge in the storm. They prayed in secret, their faith a refuge that provided strength and a vision of deliverance, their whispered prayers a quiet rebellion. The emotional toll tested their spirit to its limits, pushing them to the edge of endurance. But they held firm with a resilience that grew stronger with each trial. They sang to uplift their hearts, their voices rising in spirituals that served as a quiet rebellion against the oppression they endured, a melody of hope that echoed through their suffering. The legacy of Black enslaved women from 1820 to 1840 is one of enduring struggle, a profound testament to their strength that resonates through the annals of history on the southern plantations. They survived the most brutal of conditions, their bodies and spirits tested by the unrelenting cruelty of slavery. Yet they refused to be broken, their will a fortress against despair. They forged hope through their labor, their hands shaping a future from the cotton fields. Each bowl picked a step toward endurance, a quiet act of creation amidst destruction. They preserved their rich culture, their songs and stories a precious gift passed down to their descendants, a heritage that refused to be erased by the whips and chains of their oppressors. They built a strong community, their bonds a foundation of support that sustained them through the darkest times, a network of care that offered solace. They raised their Black children under oppressive circumstances, teaching them the skills of survival, how to endure pain, how to find food, instilling a sense of pride that would carry forward through generations. They resisted subtly. Their actions slowed work, shared knowledge, hidden gatherings, a spark that ignited the flame of future freedom movements, a rebellion born of necessity. They endured the pain of separations, their love for their families unbroken, despite the auction block's cruel hand, their hearts a testament to human connection. Their legacy inspired the abolitionist movements that followed, their courage a beacon that guided the path toward emancipation, a light that refused to be dimmed. They enriched the cultural fabric of the nation, their influence woven into the tapestry of American history through their music, their crafts, their stories. Their descendants carry their spirit forward, a living symbol of endurance and unyielding will, a legacy that thrives in every act of resistance today. They stand as unsung heroes, their struggle a vital chapter in the narrative of human resilience, a story that demands to be told. Their voices echo through history, a legacy of resolve that continues to inspire, a reminder of the power of the human spirit to prevail against all odds.